Hey everyone, this is a Ret Paladin PvP guide for 6.2.3, and in this guide I'm going to be talking about talent slash glyphs, gearing slash enchanting, macros, and give out some tips as well as what add-ons I use. Hope you like the video. So we're going to start off with talents. We're going to run through these real quick. Some of these have two options you could take, some of these only have one. And in the first row there's two options you can take here: Long Arm of the Law and Pursuit of Justice. I take Pursuit of Justice because I like the passive movement speed it gives, but they both work out, so just it's personal preference here. In the second row, the only one I'd ever take was Fist of Justice. Everyone uses Fist of Justice, and it's just the best. In the third row, Sacred Shield and Selfless Healer are the two you can pick from. Sacred Shield is what I use. I used to use Selfless Healer. You should just try them both out and see which one you like. You might like one better specifically for a comp you fight against, but I take Sacred Shield always. Clemency is my level 60 talent. I take this 9 out of 10 times. I might take Hand of Purity if I'm fighting against a Warlock, just for the reduced dot damage, but almost always in Arena I take Clemency. Next up, I take Holy Avenger all the time. Another viable option would be Sanctified Wrath. I see some people using this, but I stick to Holy Avenger because the burst is insane. It synergizes perfectly with wings, and when used together it's really insane. Next up, I use Execution Sentence, and this is the only option I'd recommend taking. Execution Sentence is good because the initial heal tick that it gives is really big, and it saved my life a lot of times, so I'd always use it for healing. And lastly, I take Final Verdict. Another viable option would be Empowered Seals. You should try them both out and see which one you like better. Obviously, Empowered Seals you have to make some more macros and it's really annoying. But a lot of people still use Final Verdict like me, and that's what I'm sticking to. Try them both out and see which one you like. Let's move on to glyphs. And the first glyph I want to talk about is Glyph of Templar's Verdict. It's the glyph that I almost always have. I don't think I ever switch out of it. You take 10% less damage when you Exorcism or Templar's Verdict, so it's pretty good. I take Burden of Guilt, which is another slow when you Judgment. So as you know, Ret Paladins don't really have a slow unless you use Seal of Justice. I almost always keep Seal of Truth up, so this one helps me slow. Next up, I take Hand of Freedom, and there's some more options. This is the one I switch out of when I need to. Word of Glory is viable. Freedom, Flash of Light is also viable, and Divine Protection. So with Divine Protection, if I'm facing a melee comp, I always put it on because Divine Protection only reduces magical damage unless you glyph it. So it splits them in half with magic and physical. So if you're facing a wizard team, you should turn this off. You should put something else like Flashlight or Freedom or Wog. Next up is gearing and enchanting. So with gear, the stat priority for Ret Paladins would be versatility, followed by mastery, followed by haste. So all your gear, you want those three stats on. You don't care about the set bonus for Ret Paladins. I ignore it. I only have one piece. If you run across a piece of gear with better stats than the set pieces, then you're going to want to go ahead and use it. I have Ashran shoulders, as you can see, and I bought from the vendor an offset piece because it gives versatility and mastery, which is ideal. For enchanting, you're going to want to use Mark of Bleeding Hollow for your weapon. And for all your gear, you're going to want to use the best versatility enchants, so that'd be Gift of Versatility. If you have a gem in your gear, you're going to want to go ahead and get the versatility gem. Next up is macros, and of course Ret Paladins have a ton of macros that you have to use. Mainly would be for your teammates, like healing them and sacrifice, bopping, freedom. And the format I use is /cast target equals, and then I have my partner's name that I made the macro with earlier. This is annoying obviously if you switch partners a lot, but there's also other ways you can do it, like /cast target equals party 1, party 2. The reason I don't do that is because I'm not sure the way the party is going to stack up every time, if the healer is going to be the first one or second one. And the way I do it is I like having my DPS on the second button and my healer on the third. As you can see down here, my flashlight would be on myself would be shift 1, shift 2 would be on the DPS, and shift 3 on the healer. And I do that for everything: sacrifice, freedom, bop, execution sentence, sacred shield, whatnot, hand of purity if I have the spec. So yeah, I'm gonna post in the description all the macros I use so I don't have to go through them all right here. But that's the format I do my teammate macros. And another macro I use is my burst macro, and I show tooltip Avenging Wrath, which is wings. I cast wings. I use Holy Avenger in the macro. I use /use 13, which is my on-use trinket, and that helps because I don't have to type in my trinket every time the season changes. I just have my on-use on the 13th slot, which would be the top trinket. And I also put /cast Hammer of Wrath, so when I use my wings, I'll show you in a second. So when I use my wings macro, which I have keybinded on V, it's going to pop wings, Holy Avenger, my on-use trinket, and it's going to throw out Hammer of Wrath in the same button as you just saw. And then you go to town, you Templar's Verdict, Crusader Strike, and all that good stuff. For my CC macro, I use the regular target equals focus, stun. I also use focus kick and all that good stuff. There's also some macros that you might not use that I have that I'm going to talk about in a second. Next up, I want to give some tips for PvP, but before I do that, I want to show what add-ons I use for PvP. I use Omnibar, which is down here. You can move it around where you want. Basically, it just shows when you're in a BG or arena, it shows the cooldowns for enemy kicks and silences, so it's useful to know for when you're casting, or if you just want to know when the silence is available against your healer. Also, I use Gladius, which is right here. Gladius is huge. You probably already know about Gladius. It shows the trinket cooldown for your enemies. It shows what big CCs they used and all that good stuff. It's great. I also use Omni CC, which I'll show what it does in a sec. When you use an ability, it shows a cooldown timer for your abilities, which is awesome. Lastly, I'm going to give out some tips I have for PvP. You might know a lot of these already, but if I share something new with you, that's awesome, if it helps, you know. First of all, a macro that I use that you might not have already would be cleansing my teammates. And I have cleanse for my DPS and healer, K and Shift K. And the reason I have cleanse macros is because of Wyvern Sting from Hunters. You can remove Wyvern Sting. You probably knew that already, you might not. You can also remove rogue poisons. You can remove the DK disease, and you can remove devouring plague, which helps, you know, if your guys are dying, you can help out the team by removing devouring plague. Another thing is using Emancipate instead of Freedom on yourself. If you're in arena, I like to use Emancipate as much as I can and try to use my freedoms on my teammates, because you only have 2 freedoms, but Emancipate has no cooldown. You can go using Emancipate, so keep that in mind. And if you're getting spammed with slows or you have multiple slows, just go ahead and freedom yourself. But just keep that in mind. Try to use Emancipate as much as you can instead of freedom. Another thing is my on-use trinket. Make sure to put that on a bar, or if you have Tell Me When to show you. I have it on my bar to know when the cooldown's up. It's of course on my wings, but the thing is the on-use trinket, it's half the cooldown, so when on-use trinket comes back off cooldown, just try to use it right away so it's up with your next wings. So you can use it twice instead of, if you only have it on your wings macro, you would only be using it once every 2 minutes, when you can use it once every 1 minute. Another thing you should have is a cancel aura macro. So my cancel aura macro is my X, which is outside of arena would be my nitro boost on my belt, which increases your speed. It's an engineer thing. You can put this cancel aura macro on literally any move any macro. Just know where it is and when to press it. As you can see, it's cancel aura divine shield, cancel aura hands of protection, and this takes off your bubble or bop. And also your teammates should have cancel aura macros, but if they don't, or if you're just doing twos with the random, a cool way you could just take off their bop, if it's the right thing to do, would be just using Hand of Freedom on them, because you can only have one hand at a time. If you see myself bop and then I freed them. Lastly, I want to talk about some cool stuff Bop can do, which is Hand of Protection. It used to be Blessing of Protection. I still call it Bop. So, as you know already, most likely Hand of Sacrifice removes magic effects like Sheep, Strangulate, what else? Any magic CC basically you use on your healer. But Blessing of Protection removes any stuns. It also removes the Warrior Fear, which is called Intimidating Shout, and it removes Rogue Blinds, which will be helpful. You know, if your healer gets blinded, you just remove it with Bop. And also, it removes Touch of Karma from monks. So when a Windwalker, you're fighting a Windwalker, I always recommend going on the Windwalker as a Ret Paladin, because their biggest defensive is like useless, because whoever they go on, I would just literally, whoever they Touch of Karma, I just throw a Bop on right away. It removes Touch of Karma, and then you just go for the kill. So in that way, Rets kind of counter Windwalker monks. I rarely ever lose to Windwalker monks. And yeah, you should bop off Touch of Karma, whoever they put it on. So make sure you have a macro for your DPS and healer for bop. That's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. If you have anything to add, or if you have any questions, make sure to leave it in the comments below.